Gemba di Sanje Shina Medepo, Drogan Namda Shina Jevo, Isdan Guru Ranaman, Yadayami. Oh, yeah. Chodwe.
Ladu.
Oh, yeah.
Kasangama Rikpa Dukchupale. I'm sorry, I should read it in English first. In Nagarjuna's 60 stanzas on page 39 of the English and page 296 in the middle of the Tibetan, there's a verse that says, the perfect Buddha stated that the world has the condition of ignorance. Therefore, how could it not be feasible that this world is imputed by conceptuality? In Jeffrey's translation there. The question then is, how, in this case, does a condition act as a cause? Could you please explain the relationship between the world having this condition and the world being imputed, or I'm translating this as designated or mentally constructed, actually, conceived. And again, the Kasangama di Ripaduchubale, Chikimara Kinchindu.
Chikamere Chinjaso, Kajito is Sanjaso.
Teacher Jitindi, Techuna Jitindi Namtoyenche, Chimites. The Kenso the Yu Europes. Kenchin Sana. Jitin Marik Kinchins.
Marik
Kinchin. Kien. Kinch.
Jidam Jen Sina, Jebu Kokore, Jen Sina, Jen Gurua, Jen and Jebu Kokore.
So having a cause means, where it says it has that the world has ignorance as a condition. That means that something that having a condition means that it's an effect. So it's an effect of ignorance, has ignorance as its condition, means that the world is an effect.
Jigden Mari Jende Surgeon, Nitan Juji Jigden, Tinana Juji Semjan Tamje, Juji Jigden de Ani Maribi Genjen, Maribi Debures. Candide Sana Maribi Wangi Lesa Walatan, and Juji Semjan to Guarua. O day in that Jigden Mari Janja to Kanjito with Sanja songs. Te Chena Namdo Jimides, the Tobate. Ani maribadi denzigu toba lo chinchilo namdo yishi chimishen.
So it says that because the world here, I mean, as mentioned previously, could be this word "world" refers to both the environment, the external world, as well as the sentient beings that are the inhabitants or within the world, that exist within the world. And if we take it, in this case, referring specifically to the inhabitants, sentient beings, then they have ignorance as their condition, because it's based upon having ignorance that they they engage in activities, create karma, and then experience the results, the different positive and negative suffering and happiness and such that arise from karma. And then it says that, therefore, if that's the case, then why isn't it appropriate to say that this world is thought or is conceptual? Then he did Jikdin Marik Kenshin.
Jikdin Marik Kenshin Kanji Sovi Sanja Song. Ta Maribala, you Maribala then Shunyi, Ani Devudu then to be Gujan teaching us. Ani Tome Guto, Ani dancing Mariba, Namdo Yishi Mide, Nabatoba.
넘버 도바. 이 남도티
벤진의 곡을 말이 봐.
딘진의 고글. 디 남도티 도페 다참기 독바 요르베스. 남도티 도페 다참기 독바.
도페 다참 남도 이시다 말이 발라 때네 주위 도페 다참 레스고 하잖아. 좀 말이 발라 주위 도페 다참. 기타 로 친지고 도발라 때네 중화 인장 말이 바디디 순디 랑신지 추었은 거라와. 다 랑신지 마주바 인자 도발 다스인 거래. 와.
So the question then is that how is it that what's the relationship between the world having ignorance as its condition, being caused by ignorance, and the world being imputed or simply conceived? The word here can be translated as conceived. That's being translated as imputed could be conceived by thought. Here it says that when you're in a state of ignorance, then that ignorance is what la gona.
뉴스잖아. 그래서 다시 여기 말을 받에 라신지 추와 쯤바라와. 자른바 인자다 라신지 추와 쯤베 로데 치지라와. 그러와. 인단 지대 말이 발라 때네 주위 아니 지대인데 말이 발라 중앙이 tenravi mari bade namba toba rangshinji chuwa zimba yinbe rangshinji majuba yinzang ane toba taksam shayan toba taksam jigdam toba taksam namdo ke taksam re joje de namdo re kangla chumin dude namdo re ane toba taksam re
tokpa di jinjiglo ki tokpa yorbe sa ya
말다디
타니비 쉐바
타니비 쉐월 타진로 도바 요라세 요아르와 타니비 쉐월 진지로 도바 딘딘 타니비 쉐월이
So okay, so then so it says that therefore this world, why is it not suitable to say that it's why is it not valid or appropriate to say that it is thought or conceptuality? What is being indicated there, the basic point is that ignorance, which is grasping at things as being real, that kind of thought is the basic source for karma and the other mental afflictions and actions, karma that's motivated by them. And so therefore the world arises from that cause, has that as a condition or cause for its arising. Therefore, why not say why is it inappropriate to say that this world is conceptual? Here, one can say that the thought here, if we take it strictly in the sense of ignorance, it's referring to this misapprehension of things as being real, when in fact they simply exist as they are conceived by thought. They don't exist from their own side, established by means of their own intrinsic identity, but rather are simply exist as they're designated or conceived by thought. So that being the case, then if you take it just as ignorance, but it even applies, one can say, to conventional awarenesses of all types, they too are affected by grasping at things as being real. So even in the simple case of something being correctly designated by thought or conceived by thought, it's nevertheless, if it's a conventional awareness, is affected by this grasping at things as being real, such that it clings to the object that is designated as if it existed from its own side. Did that get at the question? Yeah. Could Rinpoche please state again what, according to the Swatantrika school, the difference between relationship between what's called the root of samsara and the fundamental root of samsara. The rangyupala koe tsawatang koe shitsa the yankyasung nang.
Da kasan shi jozu ni xiao yin ba tangbo jigla di jian le jig dang. Da koe shitsa sana chuji dang zu koe shitsa yin is koe zawa ma re. Ra xie zu 가르레 sana 시자세 데 추지 당정 고위 자와데 당정체 당정 말이 바 직다체 직다 개월 제비 아니 주조데 직자데 그 자와데 가르쳐 가르 추지 당정의 개 추지 당정 是吧 인자 직자 추지 당정 그 자와 직자데 직디 자와데 추지 당정 인장 아니 추지 당전데 고외 시자 시조의 추지 당전의 때는 직다그 자와체네 아니 퀄리티와 인장 추지 당전 고위 시자 인장 고위 자와 말이是吧 가서 지리생님들이랑 가상 것이 줘야 되나 추지의 직디 자와 시 추지 당전 직디 자와 체바 내랑라 确实他们多把没办，我们往那边去写白是送完那些去，确实当这个基地早晚七八印章，确实当这科学实在是，科学早晚马的是，科学早晚一呢，安尼干啥个当这样，科学早晚英国的是，干啥当这科学早晚英国的，安尼你跟第早晚呢，太阳就做咱了穷是，那么这个了，你话他们这个早晚就在这前的送完印章。 다 란자 되면 저희도 주어 준비 직다대 직다 연장 5만 일라 다 추이단 된당 가사 란자 되면 저희도 주어 지금 이유나 거기 자와라 된다 믿어봐 이유가 다 있게와래 이 된다 믿어봐 이 매바대 다란이가 직바래 다란이가 직바래 다진 더구도 와 어때 인자 거기 시자 다도 봐 마인자 다 시자 연장 자와 마인
So in that system, in the Swatantrika or Madhyamika system, there's a distinction made between the root of samsara and the fundamental root of samsara. In this system, in that system, they would say that the root of samsara is the wrong view of the perishable or transitory collection, whereas the fundamental root of samsara is the grasping at a self of phenomena. So the reason that these two are distinguished, they have actually different sort of objects and different ways of apprehending their objects as well, different ways of apprehending their objects. So since they have different ways of apprehending their objects, you have to differentiate them. Otherwise, the arhats who achieve nirvana through the Shravaka and Pratyeka Buddha paths would also have eliminated the they would have eliminated both what they're designating as the root of samsara as well as the fundamental root of samsara. They say that the fundamental root of samsara, to repeat that, is the grasping at a self of phenomena, whereas the root of samsara is grasping at the wrong view of the perishable collection, which they define as grasping the person as having a self, which is a self-sufficient substance. So since the way of apprehending the objects in the two cases differs, they make that kind of distinction. In this, if the two were just identified and collapsed, then there would be no difference between the Prasangika school's way of interpreting the root of samsara and this Swatantrika interpretation of that. Does that get at the question? Yeah, okay. Nangyu dang Shinyu. Please ask Rinpoche to explain the relationship between conceived object, Zhenyu, and appearing object, Nangyu. Nangyu dang Shenyu dang Nangyu draba karyores.
Shenyu sena tindang yu de la sikre. Ra. Shenyu de. Nangyu de shewa rana la nangyu de nangyu shewa kwina yus. Ra. Shenyu sikre tindang yu la sikre ware. Tindang yu de la sikre. Kang yu shen yu de la. Ta ten midaba zimba ina midaba de tindang yu de. Midaba tindang yu de midaba zimba toba tundi sha gore. Ra. Rataba zimbi te tangzin di ki shenyu la rataba re. Te yinzang shenyu yuwa ma re. Yinzang toba tumi di sha gore. Nangyu seri rang la kang na ya de la rwa.
Pechashana dra. Pechashana dra. Dra mi takpa zimba.
Dra mi takpa zimbi te la tobi nangyu la yang taba yin gore. Toba la nangyu de la. Musungla naya de la ngobo.
So then the appearing object is the object. If you speak about this in general terms, there's a difference between in defining these, depending upon whether one's speaking about thought and its appearing object versus perception, that is the sense perception and its appearing object. In the case of the appearing object for sense perception, then in those cases the appearing object is a functioning thing, but usually when we're talking about the the conceived object, this is referring to objects as they're perceived by thought. So in that case, the appearing object is actually a permanent thing, which is the object of that thought, and then the conceived object is the aspect in which the thought apprehends that appearing object, the object that is appearing to it. So, for example, if thought is correctly understanding that a sound is impermanent, then its conceived object there is the impermanence of the sound, whereas the appearing object would be sound as a concept.
Oh yeah. Thank you.
Tokpala nangyu sana di
Tokpala. Topi nangyu sana tokpala nangwa te topi nangyu sikamari.
Nangyu sikamari.
Topi nangyu la taba yore. Nama chindu taba yunga chindu tokpala ane nangyu drodak chachila.
La di Tokpala.
Topi nangyu la taba yungu res.
Taba yungu res.
Tokpala nana taba topi nangyu sikamari chawa yuwa marisi.
Topi la yanker topi
la nana topi nangyu ibe chawa yuwa marisi.
Ibe kyaba mo mare.
Topi nangyu la taba yung kansa topi la nana topi nangyu gogu marisi. Chawa yuwa marisi na.
Karesana di dra.
Topi la nana dra topi nangyu marisi.
Topi nangyu marisi. Karese dunchi kaza.
Oh, chenji topi la chema yinba lopa nangyu drondak chachila topi nangyu sikwari.
So the distinction here is then discussing the way in which objects appear to thought. So that, for example, you have, say, a sound as it's known by thought. Sound as it is known by thought. One can say there the object which is appearing to thought is sound, which is a functioning thing, but it's not actually, that is not actually appearing to the thought directly. Rather, thought knows such objects through the medium of a concept, and the concept is a permanent thing which is such that the sound as itself is not appearing directly to thought. It's only accessed through the medium of concept.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That I think the so you the idan tumba you want to the ma che kana ani da dang jing gi che de la den ani cha da mo su jie ren ba de ma xian ni ye ge xi jia wei long de ta de ge jam nian de la ani ka se ta ji chen la mi ne xian yi mi jie yang de mo ge ren de chi ma jie si kana wa wo te yu yi du wang wai la la ina de jia tang yi du miao wa xi ina xie dang tang yi du wang miao kan ya ma yin ba ina ani du mu ko rang ge ren de chi ma jie wa pa ma na wa xi yo ina ni de la mi ne xian yi mi jia ge de mu ge ren de chi ma jie ge le xie de chi zai yin ba.
So we went last session. We ended at the line which says that, however, if or it says first that if the object that appears is agreeable to one's mind, then one develops attachment to that object and desire and so forth from having observed that object. If the object appears in a way such that it is disagreeable to one's own mind, then when one observes it, then one develops or anger arises towards that. But if that object appears such that it's neither agreeable or disagreeable, but it exists in a sort of ordinary or neutral intermediate kind of state, then in seeing that, observing that kind of object, those two other the two other types of mental affliction of attachment and anger don't arise, but ignorance or a continuity of continuity of confusion. A subsequent instance of confusion arises.
Oh, that dig is said that any river to work. Nature sometimes then you want to change image. Kansa Pama Dubala, you want to Simba Churu, Special Kashela, Kansa Pama Dubala said, Did a Kansa Tama Dubala said, Tama Dubaya, you want to Simba Churus. That dig, nature sometimes then balas, Chadan Givi, ne. Ani tenzing ki samdan dan bala, right? Chana, or ne je samdan dan nam la. Or dini tenda we tenzing te jeni te jesu, ani saje jungo, yidu onwa ji chen la chadang chaba, yidu me onwa chen na ani xedang. An ta jung koru shaba na xin ten, ani pamam chadang kaya ma yinba, ani tamadu ne wa duba na. 아니 말이 바란 그런다 치마 어이다다 차당님은 무슨게 님은 루지 심바 주르스 님은 그 루지 심바데 아니 두숨께 그래 두숨께 와서 말해.
So this explanation that has been given is the evidence for that is from the 60 verses of Arya Nagarjuna, which says that for those whose minds have a foundation, and here foundation is or a basis is referring to this grasping at this confusion which grasps at things as being real. Then the verse continues, why wouldn't the great poison of the mental afflictions arise? When one is just remaining in a sort of a normal state, So when at the time that such a person is remaining in just a kind of neutral or ordinary state, actually some texts read this as in a sort of intermediate state, whereas the text that we have here reads it as sort of like an ordinary state, but the commentary previously gave both of these as descriptions of this state. when one is in that kind of state, remains in that state, one will be bitten by the snake of the mental afflictions. So this is exactly what this verse illustrates what was taught above, which that even if one is not in a state where the mental afflictions of attachment, desire, and hatred are operating, then even in that neutral state, as long as one is in a condition of having this confusion that grasps things as being real, then subsequent instances of that kind of confusion will arise.
Oh yeah, she soon the teacher one shadow say gala. And the river to you are never send and then la shevaki, tiki, tanda shedu gala, Shijawa Sebaki Kondo, Ani Kaso, Tumugi Yunala, Ani Sumana Katas, Tajishabanashi, you to Tumbadan, Ina, Shachadan Jesu, Oda, Shijawi Devala Shabanashi, and the river to you Devana Sheva is this Tumata.
So then this verse, as it was just explained above in the passage on the commentary on the 400 verses of Aryadeva, we can interpret this verse from Arya Nagarjuna's 60 verses as having the same meaning in a similar way. That is that when one has this confusion. So we can interpret this verse in accordance with the commentary on the 60 verses. We can change that, meaning that the commentary to that is in reference to the Chandrakirti's commentary on the 60 verses of Nagarjuna, and as that has been previously explained in this context.
Oh yeah. 다 풍부 된전라 지다 개와 renje 추유 공반 나싱 다다 지야게 치수 풍부 진행 바 대지세랑 안주 여셔이 가라 아니 풍부 된바 준비 된전라 되네 최지 단전라 되네 가사 그 간전 개와데 renje 충와라 송바인자 renje 추미 공반 나싱 니모 사미 기준이 세다 니모 바 현 차다 모습 나 기준 아니 투모와 주다 엄마다 투모와데 아니 가르레 산에 교증을 가서 샤바나시레스 와
So then the way in which from grasping at the aggregates as being real, that the wrong view of the transitory collection arises is also appears, it's apparent that this is the thought of the precious garland of Nagarjuna as well. So that's where we explained previously the verse that says, as long as one grasps at the aggregates, one will, as long as one grasps at the aggregates, one will misapprehend the I. And the verse and the explanation to that is in accords with what's being stated here. Then the way in which the remaining mental afflictions meaning the mental afflictions apart from the confusion which grasps things as being real. So specifically that confusion grasping things as being real. Apart from that one, the other forms of confusion, and all of the different types of desire and attraction and aversion, desire and hatred and so forth, all of those, the way in which they originate should be understood by having evaluated by having examined and evaluated the way in which this was explained above in the context of the person of intermediate scope. In that section of this text, J. Rinpoche has explained how the mental afflictions arise in a way that accords with the other systems of Buddhist philosophy, whereas in this context here, it's giving the specifically prasangika way of explaining that.
Oh yeah, da ni mo lama jesu de jiu zheng ge su xia ba la ba ne xie wa chao se ga la da jiu zheng ge su ka de song guo de san shou zhe xue de yin na da ka sang huang zhong han zhe xue na xi che ri 아니 가서 마르바당 직단이 아니 가서 소소시에 로직체 마르바라 직단이 마르바 셰바 그 루니와 투투시에 베가나 아니 직다당 마르바 소소시에비이나 다 가르레서나 토맘 유진내수 메사와기 아니 마르바체 유진내수 메사와 라유라 몽배주비 남배주비 섬중 마르바샤와 인장 유지 내로 메사와기 마르바체 마르바 델라 때네 아니 나도 생각해서 나도 생비 당정체 라주징아 마당아요 와란자 주의 제도 주다 와라 맞잖아 다 딜라이나 다 알아 란자이 주바리 자고와 호텔에 제가나 안 대시 가서 지다지 지다기 전에 아니 지다기 요도 주에 델텔라 때네 아니 달라 란조라 차바당 아니 샹조라 당와기 당진 지달라 때네 시체네 아니 란조당 차바다 샹조라 당외 아니 세탄이 어디든 다에 나니 샹도시 다샹 차라 진당 차是大当先了，然后了才把他先觉得特别当，现在有的接，我都是为了现在接是。第一节说，俺那这打了青白的俺家接，打了青白俺家接。第一节说，俺这个没有的区别，俺那打的，俺那打把瓦给，打把瓦当，这个没有的区别打，当然没把打瓦给。안에 타다 될래 안에 쳐다지당 돈도 차지당 군도 차지니 말이 이자 타다 차야 안에 좀 맞다
지탈 맥바
한번에 말이 받지 말이 받지 말이 비제수 안에 가서래 직다지 지디 제일 안에 란조라 차봐 봐 란조라 차바다 나 세가 란조라 차바다 샹조라 당와기 아니 쳇단티지 그러봐 뒤에서 아니 랑라 달라 킴비 아자 그러봐 아자지 뒤에서 나 직다기 미유도 집에 타냐베 다데라와 기타메 타냐기도 미유도 집에 타냐베 다데 때내메 바다와당 아니야 여기서 따바다와 채단이 따다 채니채
직달을 맥배 타니 비딱
지와로 왔대
싸니 메바 So then the way this works is that if we talk about the development of the mental afflictions, how they arise, we've covered this briefly already, but in here, in the context of how all of the different, the way it's explained in the section of this text, which pertains to the person of intermediate scope, who's following the path that is in common with the person of intermediate scope, there it's explained that here in that context, confusion, if you're following the lower schools of philosophy's interpretation of what confusion is, it can be simply a kind of a lack of clarity about the nature of the object that it's perceiving, a kind of lack of a sort of a lack of clarity about the object that's being perceived. And then based upon that lack of clarity, then one can develop the notion that oneself, that you exist as a self-sufficient substance, and that you as a person exist as a self-sufficient substance. And then 당부 직달게 되니
지름이도 주베다
타냐베다. So then, based upon that notion that the person exists as that you as a person exist as a self-sufficient substance, then one discriminates between oneself and others, other persons or other things, And that sort of discrimination then it causes one to, based upon that discrimination, one develops attachment to one's own side and then aversion towards the other side which is opposed to your side. Things and as mentioned already, viewing and interpreting things as being either agreeable or disagreeable, and so out of that, then attachment and anger develop, and then further based upon that, based upon having this kind of misconception of the self. One can, one thinks that oneself is superior, and you get a sort of inflated sense of self, and that inflated idea about oneself is the source for the arising of pride and arrogance, all of the different forms of that. And so all of those different kinds of mental afflictions arise in that fashion, and as a sort of general way of explaining it. Then also, based upon this, if one has this kind of wrong view about the transitory collection, one can come to view that the conventionally existing self, or the conventionally existing I, which in fact does exist, is completely annihilated or can become completely non-existent, and that would cause one to fall into the extreme of nihilism. Or, on the other hand, one can develop the notion that such an I is absolute, is eternal, and then one can fall into the wrong view, which clings to such a self as existing eternally. And so so wrong views, pride, attachment, and desire and hatred and so forth, the other mental afflictions arise out of confusion in that sort of process.
Oh yeah, din te je la, ane jigzo la dawa dang, kondi sheba kar tarda dang, loda so la mine, ane teta dawa chodo zimba ki dawa chong zin dang, ane 저봐 안에서 가서래 주름 아마라 주름 쳐도 zemba게 안에 주름다 두시 천생 안에 대마인 바 레다 줄레라 사와게 메바다와게 로다 왔다 저기 나가라 소환 신체네 다다다게 자다자다 메다메라 메다와 유메라메 테다와 테다다와 가이노 세체네 소환 지체네 다오 테다 저기 남라 당 파진 TV나라 뭐게 오마래 제바 나신 전에 대당 충받아 님마시 기수자에 말해.
So then the same thing applies if once you have this view that the self is completely non-existent, or the view that the self is eternal, then one can then cling to those sorts of ideas or notions as if they are the best or supreme kind of idea about the way things are. And then that is then what's called wrong views. So wrong views can arise out of the confusion which misconceives the existential status or the way the self actually exists, and then based upon with those wrong views, one can also engage in different kinds consider faulty forms of religious conduct, some faulty types of behavior, as like religious disciplines that are actually faulty in nature, as being the best type of religious practice. Or one can view certain kinds of special observances that are faulty in nature, religious observances especially that are faulty, as if they are the best kind of religious observance. And then all of these sorts of, then out of that, we can see in this general process how all of the different kinds of mental afflictions and other forms of erroneous belief and practice arise out of this basic kind of confusion which misconceives the self.
Oh yeah. That didn't cancel it. That is anh lao rin kong la ya che ka la ani ju chu chi song ya da ya bo tang ge me ro ju chu se ge dan me ba du ji ani se yin ba na ani kong ba yi la che ba dan ka re sa na ani dan nyu be sa be pa la nya nyu be sa dan sa be pa la nya ye na nyu mo je wa yo je zu wa yi da dan sa nyu mo be sa pa la nya 유 가르에서는 님몬지고 요 틈바냐와 로 대사지고 요 안에 사자용 오지 동와 재단지용 사자 이동와 마 야니 요 틈바냐와 누지셔야지 아니 저 담바 마연바기 안에 가서 총알을 땜바다 아니 세 그럼 아니 님몬지 주치라 아니 가서래 친지로 시작하자 샤바치지로 아니 이모지에 그 담나 써와 콤바세야 돼 아니 가르에서는 왜 이모 알라 이모 언지 이모라 아니 집이 또 잡아 태삼로 따냐 아니 콤 집이 또 잡아 이래 샤바세 이거는 다 사제중오 이동와 지때라 때는 이종원在tel라 사바 줬다니 아니 대자제 이도 명화지 체득하나 이도 명화텔라 라바 dro다니 아니 세단제 아니야 tel라데나 따바제 어떤다 동아라 되버지 어두시 말
then you
then you 아니 then 제 미바 then 미바 두시 아니 가서래 세 공바 일하셔봐
공부.
세 인보에서 자요. 다다 대 공부 일하셔봐.
공부 일하죠.
공부 일하셔봐.
네, 맥바. 그치. 제세.
세. 이모제 세.
Say food.
세. 세 인보에서 세. 칼라사에 세.
세.
칼라사.
So then in the Lamrim, also the stages of the path text, it's explained that there are 6 conditions, or 6 factors which give rise to all of these different sorts of wrong views and that give rise to the mental afflictions that derive from wrong views. So it's said that they're to get the 6 kind of conditions. The first one is what is called the base for the arising of these sorts of wrong views. One is that one has to have a dormant seed of ignorance within oneself. That's the first condition, is the basis or foundation for the arising of this. Then there has to be an object which one perceives, an observed object. Mikbasana, den mikba.
Den sene palanya. Mikba
being is an object which one observes, with respect to which one can develop, give rise to a wrong view or have a wrong view. Then there's also, it's called how to translate? Duzi. Sort of wrong kinds of association, being in associating with people that are liable to mislead one and to induce one to engage in think in wrong ways and behave in wrong ways. And then Then the fourth condition or factor in the arising of these is called literally food, but what this is referring to is wrong sorts of explanations of things, explaining the nature of things in a way which is false and inaccurate. Then
공부하세요. 원래 님모 라 지위 아니 또 제바더라. 왜 님모라 공부하게 아니 님모가 또 제바. 님모 공부나 공부.
So then the fifth is habituation. That is, if you're engaging in this, producing this mental affliction over and over and over again, you become habituated to it, and you're conditioning yourself, is another way to translate this, conditioning oneself to which that process of habituation or conditioning induces, makes this stronger and stronger. The force of the mental affliction becomes more and more powerful. Then
이도 뭐 와라 때는 텔레 몬 세단제 텔레미네 안에 따바지 와 다도 좀 봐라 동화라 대화 좀 봐라 소바 일에 쳐봐 다도 쓰네.
So then the final one is judgment, which is what judgment here is doing is it's faulty or erroneous judgment, mistaken types of judgment, which take the object, even though the object is attractive or unattractive, it's exaggerating the status of the object such that it is sort of, it's exaggerating or superimposing upon the object a kind of attractiveness or unattractiveness that the object doesn't actually possess.
Oh yeah, that 되게 니몽기 가서래 계속이 니몽부 두당 다 니몽이 니와도 진주를 샤방보여 다시 뭐가 쳇와 니몽 제와를 때는 안에 라니 좀봐 semjen 좀봐 랑그 추준 좀봐 니몽나네 다저 semjen 주시 출심 좀 전에 안에 도대체 갈아 소연 하신다 아니 세상 스스로다는 간라라서 유명한 바람이야 치지다 저다기다 텐시체스다 진주가라 마버스와다 디시모가체 야.
So then this is the way in which the mental afflictions arise, the way they're produced, and then of course if we look at them how they operate, if we take for example anger, hatred, the effects of this or the effects of having that kind of mental affliction is that it destroys oneself and it destroys others. And it destroys one's ethical behavior. There's no need. One can discuss this at great length. There's explanations of this, for example, in the ornament for the sutras by Arya Maitreya, but we're not going to explain all of this in detail here.
Oh yeah, that's it. That's 주바 녀모 제주 그름바 안에 남들라 샤바나신 샤바 쳐야돼 다 송과래 다 남들라 송바당 디 가서 샤바니기 아니 제기 제주기 강 샤바기 녀모고 녀모데 퉁고 말이 그러와 단단 디 샤주시가 남들라 샤두 강라 안에 직다제 ranji jingada ngayu wala mena ngaranja tu becha tu chuba chibi chambari shagware tanda dira jigda khare severe ranji jingada ngala mine ngaranga chani chuba chibi chamba 강 sheju jigda ge menam sungyu amare de jizu de namjele shabade ani sawo yo yinza ani namjele shabanashi shagware.
So then the next section of the text shows that the way in which the process or stages by which the mental afflictions arise can also be the way in which one can also understand it from the Compendium of Valid Cognition or Valid Knowledge, which is by Master Dharmakirti. Here, one has to note that the definition of what is the wrong view of the perishable collection in Dharmakirti's system differs from that which is being explained here, because here in the Prasangika system, the wrong view of the perishable collection is finally is defined as taking the I or taking the mind as if it existed such that it is established by means of its own intrinsic identity. Whereas in Dharmakirti's system, it's taking I or mine as if they were established, or as if they were either a person that's established by me as a self-sufficient substance, or that which is enjoyed or used by such a person. So, in terms of the observed object and the aspect in which that observed object is apprehended, the two systems of Dharmakirti and Chandrakirti are different, but as far as the basic process or sequence in which the wrong view of the perishable collection gives rise to the mental afflictions, they're in accord. They're saying the same thing.
Oh yeah, that kind of is an undergaso. Chidela, Kashita don't tell any Majita to temperature. Shembe della Siji, Sebe Jana Jibashi, and then Toma Uncha, because Yonda Toma Yon Sebe. I see to Jilin, Tenandala Uncha, what Tissitun call Churu, Jenny, that is somebody. So, is on that Yagi Tambongashita Shinji said that Jawri, Jibati. Kashita don't tell any Mashita to Simba Churu Serigala, Toma. Ani khariji gore sana ngao nyambaki miba ngala ngatamla mine ani ngarang sanyi ji chumasung tangjin di jege wari ija kanju kashi dadon telani ngashi dadu semba chur ya an biji chuda kashi dadon telani dasna daran dasewa ani rashin chuwala chane rashin chuwa tongwa tela.
So if we apply Chandrakirti's interpretation to Dharmakirti's passage from his text here, then if we read it in accordance with the way Chandrakirti interprets the way in which the wrong view of the perishable collection, this form of ignorance which grasps at things as being real, then where it says that for someone who sees self, then they will always be attached. They will always be attached to I. So here the idea of self is taking the I, which exists conventionally, and misconceiving it as if it existed by means of its own intrinsic identity, or is established by means of its own intrinsic existence, and seeing it as that kind of self. Then such a person will always be attached to that misconceived I.
Then it Ashita to Shembati, Shemben della Sejuti, Sebe Janam Jibarchi, and then Tom Yon Seba, Yon Seba, Sitan Seba said, Yon Seba, Yon Seba, do ya, you Carson with the Sena, and then it dug it Dewala Seba Jigres. Ani Mawanyam and Jita Changana, and it dug it Dewala, Chabajabam. Dala Dewala Chaba Jabati, Ani Musumji Tuguare, Tagadewala Chaba Jigre, Tagadewala. Rangasani Suman Tagadewala Chaba Jaba. And Shembe Tele Situti, Tagadewala Chaba Jaba Tele, and a Seba Jede. Tele to Sundua, Tele Tagadewala Seba Jela. Dagi dewa tiang, dagi wanam la madeva, dagi kasanga shua, dagi dewa nam se dala dewa ti, ani kasoro wanso tata wadang, ani dagi long cheche wanso tata wadang, 아니 싫어지 세고라 소와라 마대바라 아니 달라대와 매 용식 말아 미셰바이자 아니 가서 다기와라 세바기we 왕소 타다와당 싫어지 세고라 라라 대와 계지그 주 사자그 소와 대와 계지그 주 왕소 타다와당 싫어지 세고라 소와라 세바기 그래서
So then the verse says that when you are attached, when one's attached to I, to oneself, in this erroneous way, then one will become, will have craving for pleasure, for happiness. Out of that kind of attachment to I or self, then we'll have craving for pleasure or craving for happiness. This is something that we of course observe in our own experience, that it's out of attachment to I or self that we become attached and crave for pleasure. And here, craving for pleasure or happiness refers to the kinds of pleasure, happiness experienced through sensation, the sense experiences that we have, or it also refers to the things like food and clothing and so forth, external things that we, through enjoying, that we experience pleasure from. So out of that kind of craving and grasping, craving for pleasure, out of attachment to the I or self, then we have attachment and craving for pleasure.
Then sebe gyanam dibarche yandan tonga on chaba. Kase yandan tonga yon seba sete on chaba se yeso. O de din da dag dewala seba jewe kana seba gi ani seba la gyan to toya gi gyani yandan to tone seba da ani seba la gyan ka gyan to tonga gi lo de man dibarche ba. Seba la yandan to tonga lo de kone pewa ba. Sebe gyanam dibarche yandan tonga on chaba yon seba. Then it I should do Jilin, say Gala. And it Telatana, and it out Casore. I should do Jilin, say Gala. And it oh Tedaki Wangi, and it Leon but Ducheba. Leon but Ducheba. Then that the Chaso Caso that it to Sullivan, once or Tadawadan, and the Shiroji Sagola Sebi Sebachi. 인다 세바지위가나 안에 다기 대화 주 세바지와 인자 안에 테라데는 대화 주비치도 안에 고슴지 량원바 도체 영화에서 요건에 안에 대화지에 그 안에 량원바 도체 량원바 주체배 대배된 줍디삼바 안에 대자제 대배된 마주나 안에 대배된 마주바당 미드비텐 좀나 아니 차단제 오 차단 되게 왕기 아니다 레사네 레드사네 아니 레디 다 파자 가상아주 시원하신 전에 아니 남식이 등도 거니 되니 두스마 양 민삼 조디 다 동아지 두고와 인산 뒤숭어야 되라 뒤숭고와리 가서 되라 테난달라 원샤바 테스타노 코아추스. 테난달라 원샤바 테스타노 코아추스.
So then once one has when one has attachment, when one is attached to one's I, then one becomes craves for pleasure, and this craving obscures the defects of things. That is, this is referring to how craving for pleasure obscures, causes us to not be able to perceive, to see the faultiness of the objects that we're attached to. So, and then the verse continues, by seeing them as having good qualities, seeing these faulty objects as having good qualities, we become even increasingly, we crave them even more, or a more stronger craving towards them. Then it says that So then by seeing things in that way, we, instead of seeing them as they are, we are excessively attached to things. That excessive attachment causes us, again, to discriminate between things that we interpret, that we judge to be desirable for ourselves. And and that in turn induces us to engage in activities to create karma in the process, and engage in activities that to accomplish those, to get those things that that give us pleasure. And similarly, when we have sort of excessive attachment to happiness or our own pleasure, we engage in actions to avoid coming into contact with things that are disagreeable and that we consider to be harmful to us or unpleasant. And out of that, then, of course, extreme attachment and anger and so forth arises, as already mentioned. So that it's out of this craving for happiness for the self, as the I as it's misconceived, that we create karma. And as mentioned previously, the activity of creating karma stains our stream of consciousness and infuses it with the imprints of those actions, which, as mentioned earlier, serve as the source for us taking rebirth in samsara, as mentioned in the discussion previously of the way the 12 factors of dependent origination operate. So then the verse, the last two lines of the verse is that, therefore, someone who is excessively attached to the self, so therefore, someone who has excessive attachment to self, as long as they have that, they will circle in samsara. They will, and that's what we've just was discussed in terms of the attachment to the self, misconception of the self, and then attachment to the self serve as the, as long as one has that, one will cycle in the different realms of samsara.
That's right.
차단 기수.
차단 기수 뭐 중소한. 야, 어디다? 내가 두체 고som 그래. 내가 두체 가나 아니 레디 데비트 좀디 잡아 잡아게. 미디비트 데비트 맞어봐다. 미디비트 좀 가나 세단게. 제 차단 되게 왕게 아니 고som 레 손 레사. 레디 아니다 가사시와나시 레디 가지니와나 가디 잡아 레디 파자 남식 tin도 마고 거디 데라더니 실랭기 써였다니 좋아 실랭기 써였다니 대다 기위 니몬기니 레도 첼라 스도와 대나 다기와네 다기 대와 주제도 레노 세리 탈레디 시과리 대나 대나니 대나니 아이 대나니 이나 대나 인젠 대나 다기 와남 다기 대와 주제도 레노 세가라 onso tata wadang ani shiroji sagonam ani dagi dewa duche o teta ki dewa dubi chidu ani kosumji leangomba duche 고숨지 내용과 주체가나 아니 대비 텐주바다 맞아봐라 차단 모습지 차단 대다게 왕기 아니 내동 섬주sem바 도시아니 아니 내지 바자 남식이 띵도 그와 티세나 아니 세단계 완이 녀몽지 내지 도시아라 도시아라 내지니 코와리 인점 저대에서 다 내지 바자 남식이 띵도 그와데 아니다 아니 가소래 가수 계속 주중도 친구인데 안에 세바당 렘바기 미시시비 주야 마치시바니바니 균이 펜바 체외치 테마타지 내자인 전에 송하나지 전에 다 우수 계속 중간 친구인데 안에 가르레에서나 세바다 렘바기 그봐 대니 아니 가소래 레디 계속 두발 세바기 네가 소니 네가 퇴전도 주에 내가라 아니 주와 세비던데 대체 이라 집에 세비던데 그 제수 아니 제수도 있는 잠자야 돼 가서 시원하시 전에 아니 레기장 아니 제수도 있는 잠 좋아하는 자 레기장 코는 잠 좋대.
So then, the way to go over this again, the way this operates is that as long as one is attached to the self, first having as long as one first has this misconception of the self, then based on the misconception of I or self, one will have attachment to self and aversion towards that which is interpreted as being contrary to the self or opposite to the self, and one will crave for pleasure for the self, and when one strives to achieve happiness for the self, motivated by that kind of craving, if one encounters obstruction to the achievement of one's happiness, then one will develop anger. First, just a kind of aversion towards that which obstructs, and then that intensifies into anger. And so, based upon the operation of attachment and anger, then one creates actions, one engages in activities. These activities are karma, the creation of karma places an imprint upon one's consciousness and infuses one's consciousness with imprints which subsequently function as potentials. The potential is carried over within the stream of consciousness throughout over time. Then, when conditions are met, such that ability or that potential within the consciousness, when the proper circumstances arise, such that craving and grasping are able to activate the potential that exists within that imprint carried on the stream of consciousness, then that's the point at which one is just about to be reborn into another state of samsaric existence. That's identified as existence within the 12 factors of dependent origination. When existence occurs, immediately after that, one will take rebirth within samsara, and after rebirth, then all of the entire process of samsara continues as was described previously, with rebirth in the different states of existence, suffering, and so forth that occur within them. Did I get everything? Did I miss something there?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. 그래서 간체스나.
No, 다래. 되게.
저 주바치야. 다 되게谢谢되라 하세. 谢谢되라. 아니 돈이 되죠 와. 내년이 뭐 괜찮대. 되지 뭐 내다네. 류니 레지 단이지 순간 오니 지동 세대 다른 말이 레니 유몬 균전제 세대 나 저 코르 저 펜벌 제박이 레디 아니 유몬 균전제 세가라 데리야라 중요히 난전도 집이 유몬 머리 붓근에 라네 레드 사바 인상 아니 레디 유몬 그 대부 레드 두군ong 말이 받다 때는 총화 인상 레니 유몬 균전제 스틸 라 도저히 뭐 레다니 세간 레원바 레데 니와 도저히 레데 아니 가서래 도청간데 머리 붓근에 라네 레셔바 인상 니와데 아니 가서래 저와 간도 저와 편제들이 아니 니와 도저히 레레 된디안라 중이가라 이 도저히 뭐 레다니 니몽고 그냥 라데 사비 아니 레데 니와 도저히 레데체 류니 레지 균전전 세데 류데 아니 레테기 남이지 대우 제한테 레디 증거 알아와 레데가 남이지 대우 증거기 니와 남이지 대우 되라 레데 아니 남이지 대우 증거데 야라나만지 아니 가서를 쏘았다니 아니 대우 아니 감칸도 년장 저기 있나야看我们那么说人家这个人呢，俺技术的人怎么教育那个旅中国的话，旅你来去军战争，我的俺来去这不来，来去那么去这不来，旅你来的军战争，铁松岗，俺的让性去当把人长，俺的军战那么就告诉马里不可能的来啥吧他，来的那么去这个金巴天，让性去当上。아니 남지 대우진 바데 타바레 라신지 좀나 아니 미대 바 인자 강라 돈바 니롱과 텔라 탐제 동마죠 강라 돈이 미롱과 텔라 탐제 미롱주 수완나 신천이 라신지 집에 돈베 롱과 인자 순간 오니 지동
So the evidence for this or the introduction to the next verse says that thus the mental afflictions which are originated in that way create karma, and karma as well causes one to take rebirth in samsara, to be reborn in samsara. And there's a verse from Arya Nagarjuna's 70 verses on emptiness, which expresses this and is evidence for this this position, where it says that karma has the mental afflictions as its cause, and activity has as its character comes from the mental afflictions. The body has karma as its cause, and all three of these are empty of intrinsic existence. So here, this is just as is mentioned above, that the mental affliction of ignorance serves as a cause, it acts as the cause for action, for karma, and here karma is being can be taken as the second link of the 12 links of dependent origination. It's also called activity. As well. And so the second verse says the same thing, that activity arises from the mental afflictions. Then that activity, as just mentioned, these karmas, these actions, infuse the mind with imprints. And then eventually, as already stated, that those imprints contain a potential which can be activated by craving and grasping, which culminates in an existence, the mind in a state as it's about to take rebirth in samsara. Then once that process has been initiated, then one will experience the full maturation result of the action, such that one will be reborn. And here, in reference to beings reborn in the lower realms of the two lower states, levels of existence, they have physical bodies, and the physical bodies then can also be seen as having mental afflictions as their cause. I'm sorry. The physical body has karma as its cause. So that meaning that the body that one's reborn in has as its principal cause the karma that one created in a previous life that has been activated to produce that rebirth. And all of these are empty of intrinsic existence. Sumkang ngoni kitong. So ignorance, karma, and one's body are all empty of any intrinsic existence.
Oh yeah, so.
Di sumkatsana kasa marikpa.
Marikpa niwa tuche. Ane technique debu lu.
So yeah, ignorance, activity, which is another name for karma here, and the body. All three of these are empty of essence or intrinsic existence.
Oh yeah, that tenishe sunso 대답이 주주 코아코를 봐라. 다 제세도 년잠 자니. 아니 개와 가소래. 제세도 년잠 자니. 아니 제시 주바나 제위 단대 주. 저 테니다 미수 제시 주 르바 쳐와. 아니 들마 제가 거기 단대 다 도시 춤제. 방대당 안 춤제들은 마신도 춥디. 아니다. 동아고 냐야 고추와 임바리 가소리 시바탄이 시와든 시바탄이 깨와다 냥안데나 명하다 이미데다 주바다 대다 깨라라도 좀 전에 자와시라고 알중하나시 전에 다 제수된 인잠 자와나 안에 다 가였어나 제위 동아 안에 가연 동아 시위 동아 냥안 명하대바 이미대바 추바라서와 아니 동아나바나서버지 중오 제가라 아니 대대기 동아 중주 쌍이 고위님이 마삼 다 레지 단단 니기 저 단단 저왕아마냥 들이 아니 경가이나 미 동아 뇽심바 대라 다양디 아니 쳇디라 아니 가서를 양코를 지주기 말이비 그날랑 말이버지 처음에 말이버지 다 대구나란데 알레사 아니 레지 바자 남식 등도 그 어다 도시잖니 되니 안 되니 치 지시도 되네 치표와나 아니 강호만 있었잖아 봐도 되네 치와 되네 안 지시도 년점 줘야지 아니 동아 파마셔도 냐야기 아니 콜로코야 다 되니 가서 코아코이 이른바 나 땅에와 년년이 봐도 다 공국에 송안 여기 소진천다 라와 매바이 돌아년지 주간들라 뒤 전이가나 라와 저거 대 예 우마지부 간에 송구에 와라 초반에 출때데 가라 야직 땅 마지텐 야마직 땅 야직 렘바나시 전에 만 들어와라 배서 매가 왔다 들어와 야 들어와라 아니 배서 그와 된로 제와라 배서 그와 안로 들어와라 배로 매고 배지 전에 송구와 춘진나 뭐 출잖아요. 오테나시 전에 날 코와 코주 쌈네 아니 가소래 코모 다 내와 년년 봐도 오다 내와 년년 봐도 코와 코를 말은 내와 년디 아니 코에 제와라 내주 만전이 봐도 다 공고해 말을 두시잖아.
So once one understands how this entire process operates, one can see that if one is in a is in the state such that like, for example, right now we're humans, and as humans, if we're in a state of ignorance, then we're going to create actions. We're going to engage in activities motivated by that ignorance. And those activities then will place imprints upon our consciousness. Those imprints will endure within the stream of consciousness as potentials that then will be suitable to ripen, to give their results at the end of this life. Then at the end of this life, when we're approaching death, if we have craving and grasping are present within our minds, then they'll activate one of the potentials that's embedded within the mind stream of consciousness. And that potential being activated will then cause us to take rebirth. If we're going to take rebirth into one of the lower realms of existence, then we'll go through an intermediate state before we take the actual rebirth of the next life. But nevertheless, the process of rebirth will be initiated. And then as soon as we take rebirth in the next life, birth is immediately followed by the aging process. And we'll go through aging, sickness, and death, and so forth in that life. Then also, once one takes rebirth, the mind and body complex are produced after one's reborn, or as one's reborn, and subsequently. And then the sense faculties, if we're talking about beings in the lower two levels of existence, their sensory faculties based on their physical bodies develop. Those come into contact with objects, and then sensation arises from the contact between the senses and objects. And then likewise, then the whole, since ignorance is still present within us, then there's other kinds of activities are created such that this entire process is linked together, that once one is trapped within it, one has no control at all over one's existence. There's an example that's and when once one takes rebirth, one is necessarily subject to all kinds of suffering, such as unhappiness or physical pain, not getting what one wants. Coming into contact with things that one doesn't want. And all of these sorts of experiences give rise to misery, unhappiness, and even such that will groan and express verbally our unhappiness, our misery. So this entire process of samsara is an analogy that's given in the Introduction to the Middle Way by Chandrakirti, is like a well bucket. A well bucket, if you drop the bucket, it's down into the well. It'll just fall easily down into that. Into the well. But when you have to bring it back up out of the well, it takes a great deal of effort to drag it out. So that's directly analogous to the process of cycling in samsaric existence. So then the conclusion to this section says that thus you have to study this process by which one circles in samsara in the way in which it's been described up above, until you get an absolute certainty about it. So one has to learn about this process and develop a kind of unshakable certainty about the process and how it operates.
Oh yeah. 대답이 수주 코코베 림발에 완전히 되자고 다디는마 다 단지 뽕한테 봐라 다음에 그 따와 짜와 다디마 제사다다 다 간에 좋나 되는 데 nga so
So actually we have to stop a little bit early today because there's an appointment that Rinpoche has to go to. So we'll stop there for today.
Sanje Shendo Mede Bova Ye Drogwen Namda Shen La Sheba Yidang Guru Rana Menda La Kane Yada Ya Me Tene Rundo Bele Sonye Nye Kada Yamba Kanshi Sabade Lome Marie Kudon